How's it going? I wanted to talk today about self-worth and how we progress along the journey of increasing our self-worth, okay? And what that means to us and how we measure that in our progress as we move forward. Um, with that, I want to also highlight, keep in mind that everybody out here is on their own journey, okay? So I'm going to use some examples of how we can observe relationship and other things to help indicate to us our progress, but at no point is it about judgment, okay? Discernment, yes. Discernment of alignment, things like that, but never about judgment because everybody is in their own lane. Now, that, as we know, that's not the case because some people really like to make other people's business their own. Okay, so that's someone who's clearly not in their own lane. And usually that's a distraction from working on self. Okay, it's easier to judge others for failings or perceived failings than it is to look in the mirror and say, okay, why am I distracting by judging others, trying to pull them down in order to make myself feel better? That's usually a self-worth issue, okay? Because self-worth is when you truly know your self-worth, okay? You know your value. You're not in competition with anybody. Not because you're better than, but because you understand that I might be better than you or somebody else at something, but you might be better than me at something else, right? And that's what I mean. It's not a competition. We sometimes overgeneralize as human beings. So if I'm working on a goal and I might be perceived as better than you on that particular goal, sometimes we just look at that as oh, well, then you're just better. No, nobody out here is better than someone else because we all have strength and we all have challenges, okay? The goal is when you know your worth, then you're working on your challenges and that so that you can continue to become better than who you were, not better than Susie Sunshine. Okay. Because that's not even a realistic competition. Competition can be valuable when you're playing a sport or you're playing a game, but it's not something that should exist with regards to our self-development and our self-worth. Because we're all worthy, okay? What holds us back from that is usually either projected judgments on us, and if we don't know our self-worth, then we might live up to those judgments, or down to, I should say. Or we're judging ourselves out of shame, guilt, or things like that. So as we grow and as we learn things, it's important to give yourself grace and look back on sometimes maybe we didn't make what we would consider now a good choice, okay? We don't need to overjudge ourselves and be harsh with ourselves and criticize ourselves over that. Because at the end of the day, we did the best we could with the information we had at that time, okay? I like to think that I'm a far different person now than I was 10 years ago. And in hopefully better. I feel I've bettered myself in a lot of ways, okay? And I hope that I will continue to do so until the day I close my eyes for the last time. That's my goal in life. And that's not in competition with anyone but myself, okay? So self-worth and it's really just understanding yourself better. So asking yourselves these questions and going deep with yourself and understanding, not so much judging why you made choices, but understanding why you made choices and healing that. You know, this is why you'll hear me talk about feel the pain, feel the emotion. Not all emotion is pain, but often the emotions we avoid are. They can be painful. So it's important to sit with that and understand, why was that painful for me? Because that same situation may not have been painful for someone else, but it teaches you something about yourself. And as you learn that and you connect those dots and give yourself grace and compassion because you are worth it, the more you grow. And the less those particular incidents or things will be triggering for you. So this is why people say triggers are our portals, or triggers are opportunities for learning and growth, to enhance that self-worth, to understand why. Okay? So just keep that in mind. But the other piece that helps us really kind of track our progress, or even understand our alignment, or our vibration, if you will, right? Which is just basically my mindset. What am I aligned with? Okay. So perfect example. Again, it's not about being better than someone, but say you're someone who struggles with drinking, or not even, like, I've never had a struggle with drinking, but I personally don't drink anymore. I don't. Not because I had a problem, but because it doesn't make me feel good. And honestly, there's not much redeeming qualities to drinking. That's not a judgment. I have plenty of friends who drink. I have plenty that don't. Okay? But say you're someone who is looking to stop drinking, and maybe on Friday nights you always went to the same bar or the same atmosphere where drinking was a big factor in that. Or maybe the group of friends that you're with will judge you if you're not drinking, or stuff like that. Those are deterrents of being around people when you're trying to better yourself and someone tries to make you engage in old habits that you're trying to change. That says something about that alignment, okay? Because people that are for you will respect your boundaries. They'll encourage you to try. However, usually people that judge you and try and bring you down are ones that struggle with their own self-worth, and they project that onto you. Well, if you stop drinking and I still drink, then that means you're better than me, and therefore I'm going to try and make you drink. Okay? I know that's not everyone's scenario. There's too many scenarios out there. Okay? But you get the point, hopefully. That doesn't mean that person's bad. Sometimes people do those things and don't even realize they're doing it. But this is where self-accountability and owning your own goals and keeping yourself in alignment with what you're trying to accomplish is important. Because whether someone is deliberately trying to sabotage you or not, you still have choice. And you can still learn and say, well, this person may not be in alignment with me right now. That doesn't mean that down the road they may not grow and learn, or make other choices, and all of a sudden you're best friends again, or you're in the same field circling each other or something. I don't know. I'm using all kinds of vocabulary here because different people watch what I talk about, and a lot of these things are synonymous, believe it or not. So in any case, it's similar to if someone is trying to watch their sugar intake, and maybe, again, similar scenario, on Fridays you used to meet your friend at the ice cream shop, but now you want to meet someplace else. So again, maybe your friend isn't like taking away their sugar intake, but they're willing, because they value you enough to modify where they meet you. And maybe instead they meet someone else at the ice cream shop on a different day, or maybe you switch days, but the relationship is valuable enough and reciprocal enough that it's worth holding. I don't even want to say holding on to, because that's attachment, but nurturing. Okay. Yeah, let's say that. The relationship is worth nurturing because you both feel good in each other's presence. And there's other things you get out of it other than the intake of sugar. Does that make sense? I hope so. And what we need to understand is if someone starts pulling away or starts putting judgment on us, and that's enough to rock our boat, to make us want to engage in something that kind of lowers our vibe or makes us behave in a way that we're trying to get away from, then we have to ask ourselves, why? Why am I willing to sabotage my goal? Why am I willing to put myself last to satisfy someone else or diminish my shine, if you will, okay, so that I don't irritate their demons? That's a meme out there. And I like it. It's true. But again, I'm using all kinds of vocabulary here. The concept of it is correct, and it's the same. It's show up authentically. If you have goals, chase them if they're serving you. But always ask yourself the whys. Why would I be willing to put someone before me? I'm not talking about helping somebody, I'm talking about like people that are for you aren't going to try and sabotage you, especially if you have an open conversation with them and discuss that boundary that says, I'm really trying to work on this. I would appreciate your support with that. And if you can't support me, then maybe we take a break or something. I don't know. It doesn't have to be like all or nothing. But my point is if you are willing to sabotage your goal in order to make somebody else happy, you might want to sit with the why. Okay? Are my goals aligned with my values? Am I in alignment with these choices I've made? And it's not about judgment. It's not about shame. It's about getting in alignment with your best life. What puts a smile on my face? So similar to that, self-worth, like I was saying, isn't a competition. When we have self-worth, then we're going to be I don't want to say particular. We gain a different level of understanding about ourselves. Like some of those journal prompts I just gave you. There's more to it, but I'm just saying, these are the answers that when you really have self-worth, you can answer those because you have that self-accountability. You have that self-love that says, I don't need people to accept me, or I don't even want to say accept. I don't need people to save me, I guess. You're enough all on your own. So again, I was listening to somebody and they were talking about, and I might get into this again in another video, but they were talking about a job interview or whatever, and knowing your self-worth, understanding that you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, okay? And when you know your worth and your value, you also know what's kind of in alignment for you. Again, it's not that you're better than this or better than that or worse than or whatever, but it's about what feels right, okay? What is supporting this path that I'm on? And how do I grow from there, right? So with that, it's a two-way street. I'm going to ask questions, not to have like the checkbox list, but I'm going to ask questions because I need to determine, is this a place I want to invest my energy? Energy being time, effort, right? Whatever else you may be investing into it. So the same thing goes for like a date. It's important. You're going on a date. You want to make sure that there's alignment there. But there are people that feel their self-worth is only as good as the person on their arm. That's not self-worth. That's insecurity. That's lack. You never need somebody else in order to complete you, regardless of what programming you've been told. Okay. And believe me, I get it. I grew up with a mother who believed in knights in shining armor, right? Cinderella was like my gal when I was little. Then it was Little Mermaid. But at the end of the day, it's not true. The goal with regards to relationships is that you're going to have two people that have done their own work and feel complete and happy on their own. And then you meet someone else that you're in alignment with. And all of a sudden, we can share our happiness together and it just multiplies it. It's not about two halves to a whole. It's two wholes to make two that decide to be together. I don't know if I worded that right. But in any case, it's self-worth is saying I'm enough just as I am. I was always that girl. Oh my God, I used to irritate my aunt. Because she was so traditional. She was like, I just want you to marry a nice man who's going to take care of you and da-da-da. And I'm like, Auntie, I'm okay on my own. If I meet the right person, so be it. But I'm not looking for anyone here to complete me. But in any case, I was that girl. I was never the salad girl. I was the one that if I went on a date, I was getting the rack of ribs and I'd wear the bib. And I'm like, because if you can't handle this, you definitely can't handle me. It's a true story. True story. I was fresh though, because I had a little bit of an avoidant attachment issue. So I would almost try and push people away. But at the end of the day, I say eat whatever you're in the mood to eat. Be who you are, right? Because if you're trying to win over a date because maybe you like the way they look or this or that, but you're lying or wearing a mask in order to do so. Some people go into like long-term relationships pretending to be something that they're not. That inevitably, typically anyway, will fall apart. Because ultimately, your happiness matters. So the goal, much like in a job interview, is to make sure, I mean, that's all a date is. It's like a personal job interview in a sense. It's, are you right for me? Am I right for you? It's not a perfect fit necessarily right up front because there's only so much information you're going to cover in like a 4-hour date or whatever. That's why relationships develop over time, because we as people are also growing into our self-worth, into who we are, creating goals and making things happen in our lives, right? So the key is to just be genuine. Be who you are. Be authentic. I'm not going to lie and say, oh yeah, I really like skiing when I've never been on a pair of skis in my life. Who knows? Maybe the answer is I've never skied, but I'd try it, you know, and chances are that's true, but I'm not one for cold weather sports. I don't like cold weather. Why I live in Massachusetts is beyond me. You know, something else I wouldn't mind rectifying over time, quite truthfully. So at any point, any case, I should say, self-worth is understanding yourself better. Take the time to understand yourself. Be self-accountable, right? Not everything you are or everything you've done is somebody else's problem or fault. We make choices based on our circumstances and knowledge at the time. We can sit there and vilify ourselves or others for why we made those choices, but ultimately, what did we learn from them? How does that better us in the here and now so that we can move forward? That's the goal. Create your best life. But you're not going to do that if you're forever in the past or if you're ever blaming everyone else. You are worth it. Nobody's better than you. Nobody's worse than you. They might be worse at you at playing chess or the piano. I don't know. You know, we're all ignorant about different things. I'm very ignorant when it comes to the piano. I love listening to it, but it's not something I know how to play other than hitting the keys, but I don't know how good that will sound. Oh. Anyway, spend time with yourself. Understand your worth. It's a process, like any relationship, but be honest. Be authentic. And see where it takes you. All right. Talk soon.